Hello friends, AmyR here with Prairie Paper and Ink with another video using my all-time favorite stamp set. I got the email notification that the stamp set was restocked and I was like, ooh, I already have an idea for this because I was inspired by another maker. Her name is Erin Johnson and I will link to her Instagram below in the description box below the video. She had posted a card not too long ago using this set and I was like, and she tagged me in it and I was like, oh yes, love. Her card was beautiful. And I was like, I need to do this because I have done a couple dozen videos so far using this set and this one hadn't occurred to me. So love it. Love getting inspired by other makers and it's just, yeah, the set will never get old. And yeah, I've seen the comments. People are like, you should get this stamp tattooed on you. Trust me, I've thought about it. I'd rather spend the money on craft supplies, hence me not getting it tattooed on me. But you never know. I will never say never. Maybe someday that it will because it's just beautiful. Anyway, I stamped the individual flowers from the Beautiful Flower set onto just scraps of Simon's Smooth White cardstock with Simon's Intense Black ink. And I did it twice because that was the only thing that was holding me up. I was like, what color combo do I want to do? So I went with like kind of aqua colors for the first one. And then the other one, I'm going to do pinks. And I'm using my Spectrum Noir TriBlend markers. I'm using both the brush marker and the bullet nib marker. People have been asking about that, which ones I prefer. I always prefer the brush nib on any sort of marker. I like it better. However, bullet nibs work. I'm just not a fan. Like with these images, it was fine. It's larger, more open images that I get annoyed with the bullet nibs because they're too small. But they work. And like I've said, I'll keep using them regardless because I spent all the monies on them. And more colors, more options, always a good thing in my world. So I stuck to just 2 markers for the flowers because technically there's 3 in each. That is the biggest thing I love about these is that they have a dark, a medium, light in each marker. It's like done for me. Also FYI, I had when I first started using these, it's only been like a month or whatever, people were commenting about the frustration of like using up like say the light shade and not, what are you gonna do with it? Spectrum Noir does have refills for these. FYI, they do. So you can check into that. They have refills for every single shade. And yeah, like when you add up the refills, they ain't going to be cheap. However, the amount of times, just like a Copic refill, the amount of times you can refill for the price, it works out to considerably cheaper. But anywho, I'm nowhere near the refill stage with any of these markers. So I'm just not even going to think about it. So I did my typical darkest to lightest and just kept the coloring simple with these, especially this specific set. But images like this, like florals, larger florals, etc., can be very overwhelming. Trust me, I know. But this set in particular, just the way it is designed and drawn, you just literally follow the lines because there's all that line detail where the darker areas would be and the curves and all that. And you just follow it. I put the darkest colors where all those lines are, and then I blend it out with the medium shade, and then I blend everything together with the lightest. Call it a day. We're done. We're good. It's just simple, honestly. It's one of the reasons I love this set and why I've done so many videos, and if I didn't already mention it, I will have a link to my playlist there's this Beautiful Flowers set, and there's the Beautiful Flowers 2 set, which I need to pull out again. I haven't used that one in a while. Because this one's my number 1 favorite, but that one is a close second. But yeah, I have well over a couple dozen videos in that playlist, so that'll be linked at the end. I will also have a link to the playlist I've set up that has all the videos I've done so far using these Spectrum Noir TriBlend markers. And again, I will keep adding to that playlist as I, post videos using it, keeping everything all in, one spot, easy to find, etc. So there will be links at the end of the video to those. So these ones I did the pinks, and same thing. I did the brush marker on that'll be the center flower, so the far right one, And then the other two, I used one of the bullet nib markers, and it's basically it's the same thing, like the same colors, just darker shades of those colors. So it just kind of mixes it up a little bit. So once I was done all the coloring, I used the coordinating wafer dies to die cut these. I was originally going to just die cut one set and fussy cut the other to like show the difference, but then I was like, meh, no. I've got the wafer dies. Why fussy cut when you don't need to? And I just didn't want to. But you could. You totally could fussy cut these. It wouldn't be, it's not difficult because even though they're, you know, fancy floral images, the actual outer perimeter of them, very simple. Wouldn't take very long. But I got the dies. I'm going to use them. So I die cut all of these with their coordinating dies, taped them into place with washi tape, just hold them in place. And then, just like my last video using this set, I edged all of this. I covered up that exposed white cardstock using a black marker. I don't always do this. In fact, I hardly ever. I've done this one other time because I don't, it doesn't bother me, the white outline at all. I know with some people, they don't like the white outlines with die cuts. Personally, it doesn't faze me. However, the exception to that is with a card like this and just like the other one I did, when the background is also going to be solid black, covering the white outline, it just makes everything go together a little bit better. So I'm just using my Copic black, my little Copic Chow black marker. This thing is old. In fact, the ink, I know it's sticky. This marker, I'm not even exaggerating, is probably close to 15 years old. This is one of the original ones I got way back when I first started coloring with Copics. So this marker is old because the blacks, you don't use them, like hardly ever. And this one almost never gets used, but it served its purpose. You could also use a black Sharpie. That's the only thing with the Spectrum Noir TriBlends. There's no black marker. Like there's a very, very dark gray, but that's it. So this Copic black or a black Sharpie, it works. I just quickly went over it. I went over the exposed edge on the very edge, so there's no white cardstock peeking out. I did that with all of them. That honestly took less time than it would have to fussy cut. So totally, and again, totally worth the wafer dies. But I've said this a million times. I always prefer the wafer dies. So after I did that, I took some black cardstock and I cut it down to 6 1/4 by 6 1/2 inches. This is my little Tim Holtz guillotine cutter. I get asked this a lot, why I have that washi tape there. The washi tape on my cutter, the edge of the washi tape marks the 6 1/4 inch. And then I have a line that I drew with a ruler on the washi tape that marks 6 1/2 inches because this cutter only measures up to 6 inches. One of these days, I'll just remove the washi tape and just draw it with a Sharpie marker. I don't know what possessed me to use the washi tape. Just whatever. But it gives me those markings so that I can specifically cut bases for mini slimline cards. So 6 1/4 by 6 1/2 inches. And then I put it in my little score buddy and I score it at 3 1/4 inches. So that will make a 3 1/4 by 6 1/4 inch mini slimline card. So I did this twice, and then I'd cut just 2 panels of black cardstock to, I think right now it is at 6 1/4 by 3 1/4. So I cut those 2 panels down. I put them in my MISTI with the main image from the Beautiful Flowers stamp set, which you blink on camera. You can't even really see it on top of the black cardstock because that stamp is stained. It is well loved and it's great. Honestly, the more your stamps get stained and used, especially photopolymer stamps, like high quality photopolymer like these, they stamp like this stamp stamps like a dream and has for the last 20 plus times I've used it because I've used it so much. The more you use them, the better they stamp. So I use my anti-static powder tool on the black cardstock. I inked up the stamp with clear embossing ink, stamped it onto the cardstock, and then I coated that with Simon's clear detail embossing powder. So got that all on there, tapped off the excess, and then I'm going to melt this with my heat tool. So let my heat tool heat up for just a few seconds, doesn't take very long, and then I melt it. This is always my favorite part. There's something about embossing powder when it melts, especially like when there's contrast. So clear embossing powder on black cardstock, it's just satisfying. This will never get old. I've been making cards for 20 years. Heat embossing will never get old. Melting it is just chef's kiss, man. I love it. So melted both of these panels with my heat tool. So now it's all shiny and melted. And while I have my MISTI out with the image lined up, I took 2 pieces of white cardstock that are cut to about the same size. And I'm inking up the stamp with Simon's Seafoam Positively Saturated ink. So just a nice light aqua color. Stamp that. Then I'll quickly clean the stamp off using my little, I showed this in a recent video. I've shown it in a few videos. It's my little Studio Caudia microfiber like stamp chamois basically. One side I have, I spray the cleaner on. The other side I keep dry. Scrub the stamp. Removes the ink. Again, this thing is stained. It is stained to its core. I'm okay with that. So, inked up the stamp this time after I cleaned it with Simon's Carnation ink. And then stamped that onto this piece. And then cleaned everything off. Set aside my MISTI. Now I need to remove that anti-static powder from the black cardstock. I've shown this in a bunch of videos. My microfiber cloth works great to remove that anti-static powder. Rubbing it with your hands, etc. You can see the difference there, the one on the right. All that chalky, powdery look, not pretty. So make sure to remove all of that. So it's just the black cardstock with the heat embossed image on top. So took the few extra seconds just to make sure to really remove that. And then I went through my stash and pulled out some glitter cardstock. I'm just using some Altenew glitter cardstock here because there was a couple colors that were just kind of perfect to go with these florals. So I pulled out a pink and a turquoisey color of glitter cardstock. And then I pulled out another oldie but goodie die set. This is actually the Happy Thanksgiving wafer die set from Simon, but each word is separate. So there's happy, thanks, and giving. So I just used the thanks word. And I'm going to die cut it from these glitter cardstocks. So after they were die cut, pop them out of the wafer dies. And then to adhere them, I'm using my craft tacky glue that I have in one of the Gina K, I always forget the actual name. Gina K fine tip bottles. I've mentioned this in a few videos. I've been doing this for, I forget how long it's been now. But so far, so good. Today was the first time it was actually like a little bit clogged, and that's probably because I had like filled the bottle up just a little too much. But I took a pin, unclogged it, works great. But so far I like it. But again, I like the craft tacky glue from Simon. I have for years. It is a very thick glue. I know some people are not fans of that, but I like it. I like my craft tacky glue, and it's working in this fine tip bottle. So I use it for things like this to adhere, you know, little finer, more finicky die cuts, things like that. But yeah, if you're not a fan of thicker glues, the Gina K Connect glue, there's Lawn Fawn glue, Studio Caudia has a really good glue, Honeybee Stamps has a good glue. All those ones are a bit thinner consistency, and those would also work in the Gina K fine tip bottles. So there's so many options nowadays. Love it. So after I'd adhered the sentiments, I popped the flowers into place with some thin black foam squares. And that's also why I didn't stack my sentiments like I normally do, you know, 3 layers like my OCD demands. This time, no. The flowers I popped up with the foam squares, and the flowers line up perfectly with the main image. They're the exact same size, which is just super nice. And that's why I wanted that black outline on them so that it didn't stand out against the black cardstock. And then as a final little like extra, because I was laying this on the black cards and I was like, it needs something. It was missing just something. So I pulled out one of my Spectrum Noir metallic paint markers, this gold one. This is with the big chisel tip. And I ran the chisel tip all around the perimeter of the panel. So it'll just give it a nice little frame, which will show up better when I actually adhere it to the card base. And then I also used it to dot around the little stamens of the flowers. It's subtle, but when the light catches it, it just gives it that little extra something. So I did that with both of these panels. Just ran this marker along the edges of the cardstock. So it just gives it the thinnest little gold frame. So after I did that, again, dotted all around the flower centers with just the kind of the corner of the chisel marker because I wasn't in the mood to dig through my stash and find the fine point one. And then after I did that, I let that dry, which didn't take very long. And then I adhered the white cardstock panels to the inside. Off camera, I had trimmed those down before I, added everything to be slightly smaller than these cards, and I don't have a measurement. I was just eyeballing it, so they're slightly smaller. And now you can see that gold, you know, that just fine gold outline around the card front. It just gives it that extra little something. So adhered the panels to the card bases, and then as always I stick it under my MISTI just so that it can hold them, you know, hold everything down, hold it flat to let the glue dry. So the white cardstock panels go on the insides of the cards, so it gives me a place to write. And yes, I always write over it. With these, I will write with a black pen, and it will show up fabulously. I just write over what I stamped. Doesn't faze me at all. You know, the stamping on the inside is just extra. It's just a little extra embellishment, you know? Speaking of extra embellishments, of course I'm going to add some bling. And of course I had bling in colors that went with it. These are the Pink Fresh little glitter drops. I have them in Blossom and Aqua. So I pulled those out and then put just a few on each of these cards. So like I always do, I kind of figure out the placement on the first card, adhere everything down, and then I just copy that on the subsequent cards, depending on however many I'm making. Yeah, once I get that layout going, it just makes it quicker and easier to copy that, put the same size embellishments in the same place, roughly, you know. So pick those up with my little embellishment wand, adhere them into place with little dabs of craft tacky glue. And then I'm going to pair these cards with some mini black Slimline envelopes from Simon as well. Just ties it all together and finishes them off. So I hope you guys enjoyed this. I really love how these turned out. Like I said, I will have a link to Erin's Instagram in the description box below the video, as well as my supply list, a link to my blog post, a link to all of the supplies I used. All that info will be in the description box directly below the video. And then, like I mentioned earlier, I will have links to the corresponding playlists at the very end of the video for you guys to check out if there's, you know, more inspiration, videos you missed, etc. Thank you all so very much for taking the time to watch my videos, for thumbs upping and commenting. It helps so very much. I very much appreciate it. Subscribe if you haven't, and I will see you all very soon in the next one. Bye.